cure. So that's the nature of economics. It is debt-oriented. The only possible result is an exponential debt curve, which if you look at the graphs right now, the graph of the late 90s is like going like that right now. The 16 central banks of Europe, as of May 1994, will no longer buy long-term treasury notes or government bonds. The only thing that has kept our standard of living afloat for the last 40 years is because the dollar has been artificially floated by the central banks of Europe because they wanted to maintain the productivity of the American people. Until one, they confiscated all the property, and number two, they'd installed the police state to police the residue and the social disintegration that would result once the bankruptcy was finally declared. That is the only political agenda, that's the only economic agenda, and it's the only legal agenda at this point. To make a very complex story very simple, bankruptcy is the key word. And that's why the courts are as busy as they are, and the police are as busy as they are, writing traffic citations, and the IRS is busy seizing property, and they're seizing property for drug forfeitures and forfeiting property all kinds. Man, go to the government auctions, they're great. You hear them advertised all the time. Brand new, cars, no minimum bid. All these government forfeitures and seizures, they have so much property they've confiscated from the American people, they don't even know how to get rid of it. They can't even warehouse it. There's a warehouse up in Portland that has like 5,000 vehicles in it. They can't even get rid of this stuff. But it's really all they're doing is they're shuffling the titles around, the securities. They're trying to keep the doors of government open at every level. And since they passed the impounding codes here recently in California, and I know because I've had my vehicle impounded twice in 2 days when I came down my last trip. I have the inside scoop on dealing with impounds here. Welcome to California. I was within 5 miles of the border, I was impounded. Welcome to California. Well, because I'm one of those nutcases that was driving around without license plates or without driver's licenses, and I had flags waving out the back of my window saying, "Come and get me."
How'd you get your car back?
There's nothing a little bit of paper won't do to solve your problems, to get you back on the road again. But in the meanwhile, I have plenty of grist for the mill in my right to travel cases in Oregon and California, and the Title 42 lawsuits that are forthcoming, and the administrative procedures which we are perfecting, and the admiralty cross claims and the maritime procedures that we're developing in the court systems are all so that we can basically draw the line in the sand again and try to reestablish what was once our right to travel. That was, but see, your minds are working great. See, you didn't skip a beat. You went right through. You got the whole thing, right? I could go off on a lot of tangents, and I try to hold to my subject here. Otherwise, we'll be talking about my right to travel case and jail and all that stuff, which isn't as much fun to talk about as the stuff we're talking about now. So
Come back again.
I'll come back again and we'll talk about those things. I was talking about the impounding, and the reason that they have the impounding laws here, the reason they've passed them and are aggressively enforcing them is because the governments are desperate for revenue. And it depends on the county. It really varies. Up in Palo Alto, where there's lots of wealthy people, and they really don't need to extract revenue from the parking meters, like they really could care about the quarter, and so they don't enforce as aggressively in a Palo Alto as they do in Oakland, where in Oakland they're out on the streets 24 hours a day. They've got police cars patrolling every street with a tow truck behind them. They're checking on every license plate as they drive down the street, and if you've got an outstanding parking ticket, they steal your car on the spot. So it depends on where you live, partly, and how desperate your local government is as to how much they want to enforce these things. There's a whole lot of variance here with right to travel cases. Some people actually get to travel around in their counties without too much harassment. They may know the county sheriff a little better than I do, but other people are attacked all the time for doing those things. So if you take on those issues, I say go for it. But not everybody has to be out there dealing with the right to travel issue. I'm not suggesting everybody go out there and take all the plates off your cars tomorrow and all go get arrested and get impounded and all that. There's other ways of dealing with it if you can still become a sovereign citizen. And what I have done on this trip, I bought another car and I have registered it in a trust. So I am no longer, don't have this property. My trust has this property, so I don't have the flags flying out the back window on this trip. So I could actually get here tonight and to make all the other 7 seminars I had scheduled down here. Because that's a bit of a hassle when you can't get where you're going. So there's more important things sometimes. But that's the underlying agenda behind a lot of these aggressive laws and a lot of the police on the streets and all that. And so having that information is real important because it's a piece of the communications that we have to have with our government, with our local governments and with the police officers. I've had incredible conversations with police officers, even while I'm sitting in the back of the patrol car in handcuffs, having these incredible constitutional conversations with them. And it's just wonderful. Of course, I've also heard a few deriding comments like, you know, there's about 4 or 5 police over here, and they're going,